Yo, what's good, everybody? So, interesting tweet that it came out from former Jet Kerry Rhodes, and it kind of got me thinking about the debate that was out there, right? So, essentially, he said he's the best Jet safety within maybe like the last 2 decades. He mentioned like 18 years specifically, but I won't say Twitter went crazy, but a lot of the disputes were definitely, now that we have Marcus May, we had Jamal Adams. There are a few other names that, were flew out there. Marcus Gilchrist, Jim Leonard. Um, Personally, I think he definitely has a strong claim to it, right? So the only disparity for why I wouldn't say is guaranteed Jamal Adams. Regardless of how you feel, the man came to New York and was decimating people. But Kerry Rhodes played, I think it was 80, 84 career games, something like that with us. Um, Jamal had, 32, 36 games, something like that. So overall, if you look at the numbers standpoint, keep in mind the positions because we're not talking about keep in mind the time frame and the positions, right? We're talking about the early 2000s. I want to say 2003 or 2005 to like he played about 5 seasons with us. So I think it was 2005 to 2009. Um, Jamal Adams played basically his entire rookie contract, essentially. Um, Minus the additional last year, right? The injury guarantee, I think. Um, just off the top of my head. But we're talking about two different positions, two different time eras. So the safeties now, almost every scheme is kind of dedicated now for things to be interchangeable. So unless they really specifically drafted someone with a skill core set in mind, ideally you like your players to be able to switch between man and zone coverage and drop deep or whatever in case of injury, and just to kind of buy yourself a lot more flexibility with how you want to create pressure. So back in the old times, that was kind of a trick of the defensive mastermind. So you're seeing things like that out of the Bill Belichick's, the Buddy Ryans, Rex Ryans, who else, Todd Bowles kind of coming up, uh certain players. I think Sean Payton kind of had some similarities to that going for a while. But really, the standout safeties that you really had to do exceptional stuff. So we're talking about like Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed. Nowadays, we got a lot more variety. Justin Simmons, Jamal Adams, Marcus May, for example. There's definitely a lot more players there that aren't even coming in as safeties too. We're talking about hybrid players that came in as like a linebacker and they're switching back and forth, whatever. But ultimately, two different eras and then two different positions. So Kerry Rhodes was playing a free safety spot, right? So he's coming down. We're trying to make him the last line of defense ultimately. And we're hoping, when he does get his opportunities, he comes down with the ball. Whereas Jamal Adams was clearly an in the box safety. It's not something you really want to take him out of position for. So he's coming downhill. He's smacking people. He's trying to make plays based on fumbles and sacks. So there's definitely a bit of difference. Now, what I will say, I think we only got 2 picks out of Jamal Adams during his tenure with us. But essentially, from a playmaker standpoint in that aspect, we got nothing out of him. We got the crazy, sacks season in, season out. The man was definitely a hit stick master, right? So we got a lot of fumbles, but those aren't consistent plays that you can expect where, most offenses are going to throw between 30 and 40 passes a game. The best thing we can hope for is sacks and, strip sacks, forced fumbles, whatever. So and it's kind of what fed into his contract issues too. It was a bit of a it's a minimal impact people would expect from the strong safety position. Whereas with free safety, people are going to want to take those deep shots when they need to. If you're playing intermediate coverage most of the game, there's just much more ample opportunities to be able to make something big happen. So you would want to give the edge to Kerry Rhodes ultimately, but I mean, he made the plays he needed to make. I think he had somewhere between 6 and 9 interceptions for sure during his tenure, which doesn't sound like a lot, but then also keep in mind the running game was a lot more prevalent in the early 2000s. So those numbers definitely stand out. And then he still was making the other plays. He was getting forced fumbles. Um, he was getting, I think he had a handful of sacks. That's not really his department, especially as a free safety. But all of his numbers essentially rank as either like the number one or number two position. And again, he had, 50 plus more games than the next best person statistic wise from like a game by game performance. But clearly, I think the two choices have to be between Kerry Rhodes and Jamal Adams. Now, whatever your preference is probably what you're going to lean with. I think Kerry Rhodes had the better all-around game. Now we can play like, the what if we swap positions. I think Jamal Adams get decimated if you put him at free safety. He'll come down and probably pick up a lot more forced fumbles since he can get like, a 20-yard head start on it. But ultimately, if you stick Kerry Rhodes at strong safety, I think he still makes a lot of those plays. So it'll be fun to kind of see it'll be kind of fun to see how Jamal Adams' career continues to progress and where his numbers look like at the 80 game benchmark compared to Kerry Rhodes. But personally, I would say Kerry Rhodes probably has to, he has to get that award. He's put the time in. He stayed healthy. He has the stats all across the board. And Jamal Adams is just a freak of nature. So outside of the interceptions, the Butterfingers, Kerry Rhodes, I think, is definitely, I don't want to say the clear favorite, but I think there's definitely a bit of a distinction, even if we're only saying that due to the amount of playing time that's been in there. But we'll see. Jamal Adams, for whatever reason, the Seahawks have, I don't want to say it's a talent drop-off. I don't really believe in that unless it's like injury-wise, but the way he's being utilized, maybe the players around him, whatever it is, there's definitely been a bit of drop off in production for him. It's not like last year was, crazy. So this year, seeing, no sacks, I don't believe he had any interceptions this season either, and he's had a few easy ones to grab. It's definitely gone downhill, and they just gave him the huge contract, so I know people are probably ripping on him left and right. But either way, just wanted to drop my thoughts on, I'm going with the Kerry Rhodes column. Let me know if you guys think there's a better safety that's played for the Jets, within the last 2 decades. I can't really think of anybody else that necessarily comes close. And then I've had my sneaky favorites, not from a stat standpoint, but I think somebody that could have contributed a lot more. My go-to guy, and this was a trade secret for me when I used to play Madden all the time too, Antonio Allen was my boy. Let me tell you guys, I think he used to be rated like a 66 or a 68 all the time. But I would always immediately start him on my squad. I would immediately always be able to get him up to a top tier safety talent. And the man just found a knack for getting the ball. So, I mean, it is what it is. Either way, though, let me know your thoughts on who you think has held down the safety position the best for the Jets. And I'll catch up with you guys again. Peace.